Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and before we get into today's video where we are going through my Lutterloh muslin, my wearable muslin for my Precious Fabric Challenge, I have just a couple of things. It's a very exciting video today. Number one, today is Friday. We have a Love Notions Feature Friday pattern, and today's pattern is the Harmony blouse. I love this top. Has a couple of sleeve options, sleeveless with sleeves. It is a woven top. It is fitted through the bust and then swingy from the bust down. So it's a fantastic little transitional piece. I have made this top a number of times. I find that because of the swinginess, it makes it really good for like half tucking, or if you wanted to crop it just a little bit more, that is very, I feel like in style with wearing like a high-waisted pair of pants with like a little swingier top over top. I say cropped, I mean like high hip. Let's not get crazy. Anyway, wonderful pattern. Again, I've made it a number of times. I've got a white silk one in my wardrobe. I've got my Real Pretty Rifle Paper Company one. It's a lovely top. And today it is $5 only. With the code 10Whitney, you can get an additional 10% off that sale price. So definitely go over. It's one of my TNT patterns. I love that top. So you may want to add that one to your catalog if you haven't got it already. Also, we're in September. Precious Fabric Challenge is happening. Sew up your precious fabric, post it on Instagram, tag me, use the hashtag PreciousFabric24. We'll be talking about my project here in just a second. Don't forget that. But also, Mari Sews is doing the Dress-A-Girl challenge again, and I unfortunately don't have time to actually participate in it this month, but I do want to give a shout out to it because it's such a wonderful cause. So I'm going to link her channel down below if you want more information on that. It's you making dresses, and they get sent off to all sorts of places for girls to have dresses to wear. There's specific patterns that you need to choose, but yeah, you're clothing people in other countries that may not have access to dresses, and just being able to feel put together as these girls are going off to school and stuff like that. So wonderful cause. I will link her stuff down below. Okay, let's head to the video. Let's go see my wearable muslin, and I'm going to show you exactly the adjustments I plan to make, and then I'm actually going to make those adjustments for you on camera. I'll see you over there. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Tomcat Stitchery. I'm Whitney, and today we're doing something kind of fun and a little bit different, all part of the Precious Fabric Challenge that I'm hosting over on Instagram. If you're not aware of what I'm talking about, it's a challenge I'm hosting over on Instagram, but I've got a whole bunch of YouTubers that are all taking part. There's videos every single day, and some have 2 videos a day, all throughout the entire month of September. If you are interested in that schedule, I have a pop-up on my website and stuff, but I will leave a link to the original Instagram post. But I'll also, if you just want to go to my website, tomcatstitchery.com, there's a pop-up there where you can see the schedule also of where to find everyone for each day of the month. But as part of this, as you guys know, I have made, and I'm wearing it right now, and you'll see why here in a second, a wearable muslin for my Precious Fabric. So my Precious Fabric is this gorgeous Italian silk, just beautiful. And I had everyone vote on which Precious Fabric I was going to use for this challenge over on Instagram. Also had them vote on the pattern I was going to use and the muslin fabric that I was going to use. So I've made my muslin, and today we are going to take a look at it. And I know you can't see me full length, but I'll pop pictures, video of me full length, as well as front, side, and back stills, so you can kind of see a little bit about what I'm talking about. But I've made my wearable muslin here, and I've used a Lutterloh pattern. This is the pattern that I've used right here. Lutterloh is a system that allows you to pattern draft for your size. And they do recommend, at least doing a tissue fitting before cutting into fabric. I just decided to do a wearable muslin for mine. And I am very pleased with how things came out. Now, I know this type of dress isn't for everyone. I don't have a waist seam. It's very loose. And I also don't have it styled right now. There are 2 main fit adjustments that I want to make to this dress. And I'm going to talk you through it. And then we are going to go over to the cutting board, and I'm going to show you how I'm making those adjustments to the pattern. And then I have a couple of things that I want to do just to mix it up and make it a little bit different for my final version that aren't really fit, but just for myself. This is a very wearable muslin. I cannot wait to, I was playing around with it with a cardigan over it. I am currently knitting a Fair Isle vest that I think will be really great over this dress. As is, I think it's going to be cute with boots, but with my tie-up boots and tights as well as my heeled boots. I love a dress without a waist seam because I'm very short-waisted and I have a thicker waist. So a lot of times it just cuts me in half when I have any kind of waist delineation in my dresses. So very pleased with how this came out. It's exactly, what I wanted. It's a midi-length dress. I love everything about it. But let's talk about some of the fit issues. And there are two that I see, and I want to talk you through those. So number one, it looks like my sleeves are long, right? And they are. I've done 0 adjustments to this pattern. So it would make sense that they would be just a little bit long. But that is the obvious, yes, the sleeves are long. However, it's also just a little bit big in through the armhole area, okay? Because my sleeve seam is sitting on this right here, on this part of my arm. I know that's hard to see, but trust me, my seam of my sleeve is sitting right here. When in reality, it needs to be right here. So I need a narrow shoulder adjustment. Now, what does that do? Narrow shoulder adjustment is going to bring in the shoulder here. It's going to shorten my sleeve a little bit. I do want these long because I want them really billowy. And my final will be a little bit different. I'll talk about that just because of the fabric here in a second. But it's going to do that. It's going to bring in this seam. It is also going to raise my underarm a little bit because that is what the narrow shoulder adjustment does to create. It's going to fix a little bit of the length issue. It's going to bring this in and just make it look a little bit more tailored, and it's going to fix the excess that's in through here. So that is the first adjustment I'm going to do. Now, if I measure how much difference is between where my sleeve seam is and where the top of my shoulder actually is, it's about 1.25 inches. But I know that, that would be a gigantic narrow shoulder adjustment. But I have used, now this is a great fabric to use as a wearable muslin for my silk charmeuse because of the drape. However, rayon, this is a rayon challis, I guess, a real lightweight one. It was kind of a pain to sew with. I have no idea where this fabric came from. I really can't remember. It was just in my stash. And I think it's fine for my wearable muslin. Again, I am going to wear this. But anyway, it is a very similar, so it's giving me the drape so I can see how things are going to fit. But rayon is a very heavy fiber. So what this means is that because it's heavy, it drapes down much, much more. It pulls things down. You have to be really careful about stabilizing necklines and technically shoulders as well. Really, much more so than a silk, because a silk is a much lighter fiber. So because it's light, the fiber itself isn't pulling down on itself. So I know that most likely the weight of this sleeve is pulling my shoulder down much more. So how do I determine how much of a narrow shoulder adjustment to do? I'm going to do 3/4 of an inch, which is about 1/2 inch less than what this is actually indicating that I need. But I think that is, and it's kind of an educated guess on my part, that's a pretty common narrow shoulder adjustment that I have to make for like the commercial patterns, for instance. I often have to do narrow shoulder adjustments on those. And because I made this based on my full bust and not on my upper bust, I'm not surprised that I have to do a narrow shoulder adjustment because I am smaller because of my bust. I think this fits really well on the bust though. I'm very pleased with that. And I think this is going to fix everything and make it look really, really great. I played around with shortening the sleeve just a little bit as well. But I do really want a billowy sleeve, and the silk isn't going to fall down over the cuff as much as this fabric does, again, because of the weight of that rayon. So I think I'm just going to do the 3/4 of an inch narrow shoulder to fix that issue. The other issue I'm seeing, and you can't really tell from the front, but let me turn around to the back. When I move, sorry, I don't want to talk with my back to you because you can't hear me. When I move, I'm getting pooling at my back, as you can see. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, you need a sway back adjustment, which kind of, yes. In other words, the pattern, the full parts and the narrow parts of the pattern are not hitting me at my full and narrow parts. So everything's just a little bit long in the body. So for instance, the narrowest part of the pattern, and again, this is pretty loose to the waist, so it's not as obvious as it would be if it was something more tailored. But the narrowest part of the pattern is hitting down lower than my narrowest part. So it's shifting everything else down. So where my hips go, although again, very little, I have pretty straight hips, but even so, they do go from narrower to a little bit wider, even though it's not as much as most. So the narrower part of the hip is sitting down a little bit where my fuller part of my hip is. So it's catching. So basically, all I need to do, and this is a common adjustment that I need on quite a few pattern companies, is I need to raise the waistline on this 1 inch. And I just know this because it's a common one that I'm not measuring anything on this dress, but when I pinch out that inch, so I'm basically raising the waist up an inch. It's hard to do without like actually pinning all the way around. But when I move and I'm getting the pooling right here, I'm basically eliminating that because I'm pulling everything up, shortening everything up 1 inch all the way around so that things sit where they're supposed to on my body. And all of a sudden I have the room at my hip and rear end that I need because that's the part of the pattern that needs to hit at that spot. So those are the only 2 adjustments I'm making. A narrow shoulder adjustment, and I'm going to shorten it, bring the waist up 1 inch. And that is all I'm going to do on this pattern. And I think that's going to fix all of the fit issues that I have going on. Now let's really quickly talk stylistically some changes that I want to make. Number 1, I don't think I need 2 of these dresses in my wardrobe. I'm trying to be mindful of that. So I think I'm going to cut the pattern off or draw a line basically to have this hit me at about high hip. So it's a blouse instead of a dress. And I'm not really surprised by that. I was kind of thinking the whole time one of these might become a blouse. And I feel like the solid as a dress is just going to work better in my wardrobe and have the print be just a blouse. And then I'm going to have enough fabric to do something else with it later on down the road, which also helps the precious fabric, you know, because I can't get any more of this, but then I still have a little bit that I can put back in the stash for another time maybe. Anyway, because I'll probably use about half the yardage I'm anticipating on this top. So that's one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to cut for the finished one. I am going to just do a, I'm just going to put a different cut line for a blouse length. So then I have 2 options. I can make it as a dress in the future or make it as a blouse. Also, my keyhole opening in the back that I created is a little, I don't need it quite as low as it is. So I'm just going to raise that maybe an inch. I just don't need it quite that low. So that's another stylistic thing that I'm going to do. And with Lutterloh patterns, these were all decisions that I made when I made this one that are a little bit different than, I mean, they suggested a facing. I didn't want to use a facing. I did bias. And actually I use contrasting bias because I can there at the neckline. But this, which I like that finishing much better than a facing, but it does leave a line of top stitching here on the right side. And I don't know that I want that for my silk. It's fine for this dress, but I don't know that I want that for the silk. So I think for the neckline on the silk, I'm going to bind the edge. So you'll be able to see the binding is going to wrap around the top edge of the shirt. Because then I can finish that off with a little hand stitch and it'll look really pretty. It also gives it a little bit of dimension there at the neckline as well. So I'm going to cut off the seam allowance at the neckline because I'm going to be binding over that cut edge. So I don't need a seam allowance there. Hopefully that makes sense. So that is another stylistic thing that I'm making. And I think that that's it. I'm just going to be making those little things. I've made rouleau loops. Oh, look at these buttons. Aren't these fun? Got buttons. And I made rouleau loops for those. I have a rouleau loop in the back, although I may just do a hook and eye to close the keyhole on the silk top. But I am going to do the rouleau loops and there on the sleeves. I've done a bias placket on the sleeve, which I'm going to do on the final one as well. Yeah, I'm just feeling, I'm feeling very good about this. And again, I think I'll style this and post it when I post my finished precious fabric blouse. I'll style this up too. So is this perfect? No, there's, like I said, 2 fitting things that I want to do, but is it wearable? Absolutely. I'm totally going to wear this. I think it's going to be fantastic this fall. It's very comfortable. So it's not a perfect fit, but is it better than, you know, something that I'm going to get at the store, or right about the same? Absolutely. So it's going to stay in my wardrobe. I'm excited to play around with layering it. But I'm now able to easily see the adjustments that I need to make a really great blouse out of my precious fabric. Keeping in mind, nothing is perfect. We are going for really great. We can't achieve perfection. Remember that. Anyway, let's go over to the table and I'm going to show you how I make these 2 adjustments. All right, so here I've got my pattern. I have 4 pieces to this pattern. So I'm not doing anything with my cuff or my sleeve. Those are both staying as is. So I'm not even going to shorten the length on the sleeve. So I'm going to set those aside because I don't need to do anything with those. So I'm basically working with my front and my back pieces. So we'll start with the front. Let me set my back piece aside just to get it out of the way. And like I mentioned, we are doing a narrow shoulder adjustment as well as raising the waistline. Now, when I drafted these patterns, there is one of the dots that had a line that went across is the indicator of the waistline. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw that line in. So this is where the pattern has the waistline. And I am making this perpendicular to the grain line, which this gets cut on the fold. So this is the grain line. So I'm just going to measure that up and make a line perpendicular to that intersects with my, so that's the waistline that's on the pattern. I want to raise it 1 inch. So I'm going to draw 1 inch above it, like so. And then I've got, this is a paper cutting rotary cutter. So I'm just going to cut it at the waist. And you can see where the pattern goes in, right there at the waist. And I'm just going to raise it, making sure that I am, you could put a control line that is perpendicular to the line that you drew, but this is cut on the fold, so that needs to all match up there at the fold. There could be a jog at the side, although there's not, so that's helpful. And then I'm going to tape it in place. So now I have raised the waistline 1 inch. I'll do this on the front and the back. All right, so there's that done. Also, I want to make a new hemline for my shirt. And I have determined that I would like my hemline to be about, 8 inches below my waist. So I'm just gonna mark here, I'm measuring down 8 inches, which puts me here. And that is where I want my finished hem of the blouse to be. So I'm just gonna, and the hemline, I'm pretty sure, is pretty straight. Yeah, it's straight here in the front. So I'm just gonna make it straight in the front and the back, because my rear end isn't gonna come into play with the top. So just a straight hem. So I am going to well, sometimes it helps to line this up on my, there we go. All right. So there, and I can make it dotted, is going to be so that I know that if I want to make this a top again, that'll be the new hemline. Okay. That is done for that. I also mentioned that I want to take off the seam allowance here at the neck because I'm going to bind it, and I think that's just better going forward. So I'm just going to cut this off. So I'm just going to be wrapping the bias binding around this neck edge. Okay, so now we need to do my narrow shoulder adjustment. I determined that that's going to be 3/4 of an inch. I have a tutorial of this on the channel, but we are going to do it here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm messing around with the cut line here, not the sewing line, because there's no need to take it off and then put it back on. That's just extra steps. So I am going to trace in my armhole curve because this is important. We want this to stay the same the length so that it still fits the sleeve. And then I'm going to mark the top and the bottom, and I'm going to mark that armhole notch. Okay? Set this aside for a second. Now we are going in 3/4 of an inch. Again, I'm going 3/4 of an inch in from the cut line because, I mean, you could take the seam allowance off, do the 3/4 of an inch, and add the seam allowance back on. That's just extra steps that we don't need to do. So we are not going to do them. So I'm going to go in 3/4 of an inch and mark a line here that is right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go behind because I know that this is going to raise the armhole because I've done it enough. And I am matching up this top part of my armhole with this new line, like so. And now I'm going to kind of put my fingernail here, and I'm going to swing this bottom part until it is in line with the side seam. So it's raising my armhole about, I don't know, 3/8 of an inch maybe. So not a lot, but it is raising it a little bit. So now I'm going to take my tracing wheel here. I'm going to put tape down here because we need the little bit of the extra paper here, like so. And I'm going to trace because I can see that line underneath there. We are basically just rotating the armhole, okay? And then I do want to mark my notch moved just a little bit, not a lot, but it did move. So I'm just going to mark in my new notch and cross out the old one. And now I can cut away, cut right on that cut line. And then we're just going to connect this with the side seam. There's a ton of extra paper back here, so I'm going to cut that away. All right, and there is my new narrower shoulder. We don't have to do anything to the sleeve. The sleeve still fits. I'm just going to tape this paper down here in the back so it doesn't get caught on anything. And there we go. Narrow shoulder adjustment done. So now I'm just going to do this exact same thing on the back, and my pattern will be altered and ready to be cut out in my precious fabric. And there we have it. We've done our 3/4 of an inch narrow shoulder adjustment. We've raised our waist by an inch, and I've marked a new hemline for the blouse when I cut it, and I took off the seam allowance around the neckline so I can just bind that neckline. And there we have it. The pattern is all set and ready to go. I can now cut out my precious fabric. All right, so there you have it. Those are the things that I'm doing for my precious fabric. Next week, next Friday, so in case you are not noticing the trend, each Friday this month, I'm doing a precious fabric type of video. So next week, I'm actually going to be doing a tutorial on how to make rouleau loops. And a rouleau loop is, rouleau is round, is what that means. And my mentor taught me how to do a rouleau loop and keep it round. So if you're making them for spaghetti straps or for button loops like I've done here, there's many different ways that you can use rouleau loops, but I'm going to have that tutorial next week to show you that little trick that I'll be making those for my silk blouse. So stay tuned for that. Otherwise, I'm very pleased with my wearable muslin. It's very wearable, and I'll be wearing it. I mean, again, I know that this type of dress isn't everyone's cup of tea, and that's fine, but I really like it and excited to wear it and style it this fall. You know, are the long sleeves going to bother me? Maybe a little bit. I could go back and try and alter things, but It's honestly, this fabric was a little bit of a nightmare to work with, and so I really don't want to take the sleeves off and redo all of that. It's not worth it to me, but I will make the adjustments to the pattern for my silk version. So there we have it. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. I hope this was helpful in helping you assess your own wearable muslins and the fit that's associated there. I know that that can be tricky, which is also why I offer a fitting course twice a year, where I hold your hand and help you learn all about fitting and how to best fit your body as well. So I'm currently in the course teaching it right now, but we'll be back again in the spring, so stay tuned for that. It's a really great course, but hopefully this was helpful. As always, leave any questions you have down below, and I'll see you guys again on Tuesday.